Everybody, and welcome to the April 4th meeting for the Board of Assessors. Our chairman, Gary, isn't here today, and we will have to go into executive session after, but I will just run through what we have to go over today. Number two, or first of all, last minute meeting minutes. I've reviewed them, and there are a few things that I carried over that we will be discussing. Number two, for the public to be aware, I'm sure they are already because they went out last week, but the second half real estate and personal property bills for fiscal year 22 were mailed last Thursday? Last Thursday, so you should be receiving those in the mail. If you had a balance that was due.
I received mine and I was excited.
Okay.
Exciting.
And as a clarification too, that there's no acceptance of exemption applications or abatement applications from the second half real estate bills. If there's a question or concern, the time to address that for an abatement or an exemption, because the times have passed, would be for the fiscal year 23 tax billing, which we're working on now for the fall bill. You know, hopefully everything goes okay, but there is a lot that is happening, which I will get into. There is a motor vehicle warrant that needs to be signed for the second commitment of this year, because those bills are going out today. We also finally got the contract for the Glendale Hydroelectric Power Station from Roy Bishop for fiscal year 23. It typically comes in between $2,000, $2,500, and again, he's charging us $2,500 for the appraisal, which is pretty much on target. And that was one of the items that we talked about from the overlay, to pay for out of the overlay, which I believe Mike is working on that article now for the town meeting. Number 5, unfortunately, I wasn't able to print it out, but today I need to submit the work plan for the fiscal year 23 recertification of values. We are, I would say, knee deep into the revaluation of property values and personal property values for fiscal year 23. There is a work plan, and that's why I scooted down the hall before the meeting to try to print it out, but it's just, the screen is just spinning and it's not letting me print anything. But that I'm going to submit today, and I could just tell you the dates, or the date that I put down for the final review. So I heard from our field rep, Joe Barberi, 2 weeks ago, and we're in the midst of getting, the work plan is basically, it's just a 2-page form that needs to be filled out on Gateway. It used to be an 8-page form, but they've really reduced things down. And basically it just gives the Department of Revenue and him an idea of where we stand and what our plans are going to be for getting and completing the certification for fiscal 23. Typically he comes out and meets with me. And again, that's going to be on his terms, you know, because they're all working from home still. And they review typically they do a random sample of our property record cards, go out in the field, and if they have any questions, then they'll bring it back to me. They're doing something different this year. They're actually going to be reviewing all of our sales from last year. And I think the reason for that is because there's a lot of towns that are concerned about where their values have gone, and it's not going to be an easy task to get through the certification requirements and seeing what adjustments you have to make without some help from the Department of Revenue. So I think they're trying to just get ahead of that instead of waiting until typically it's June or July before we're actually reviewing the sales, which is great for them to know exactly what happened in Stockbridge or as many other communities that he may have, and at least know, you know, going into, because we'll be really into it by May, June, and July, where our values are going. And I'm actually out in the field now also, in case anyone sees me doing cyclical inspections and reviewing the sales as well. So there's a possibility, especially if you're a new owner of real estate since last year, that you might be seeing me knocking at your door for a quick inspection and a review of your sale. And it's a friendly way of introducing myself and you to the town. And I also will get a quick review of the measurements of the property as well. So the work plan, hopefully I could talk to him today and get that submitted. I do actually have the dates on there for each component that has to get done. And typically the first one is your sales analysis, which I usually will start in April, May. And then it's all the schedules and everything else that have to get submitted. But I did, the final date that I put down for a review was August 15th to actually have the Department of Revenue here. And it's up to them how long they want to stay. I mean, it all depends on how much they need to look at. And then after that, it will be the preliminary certification. That's the big one. Once you get preliminary certification, then you start your public disclosure. And after the public disclosure, we'll file for final certification. And I think there are 12 other communities that he is dealing with. So we want to try to get stuff in as quick as we can. There's a lot of changes going on because there's a new director at the Bureau of Local Assessment who's taken over for Joanne Graziano. And as well prepared as we think we might be, there might be curveballs sent our way because there is a new director and he may be looking for things that we may possibly have never submitted before or really looked at before. And I have my own concerns, and if you guys have anything that you think specifically we should be reviewing, or you want the state to focus a little bit more on, just tell me and I could throw it their way as well. I know we've talked about a few things over the years. This is the year to do it. I'm still waiting for the contract to come through for our personal property inspections that are going to be handled by RRC. They said someone was going to come by and pick up the form of list, which were due March 1st, but they're still coming in. They've got the utility ones, but no one has been in yet to pick up the actual business ones, which hopefully I'll talk to him today and we'll get that going as well, because they're going to be doing our 504 valuations also. I found out for sure we'll skip around a little bit. Number 7 relates more to what we're talking about. Joe told me when we talked a few weeks ago that we indeed have to conduct the second homeowner study for fiscal year 23. So what that means is we will be sending out within the next few weeks close to, I'd say, 650 form of lists to all the second homeowners. And that will be used to gather information for furnishings that are in their properties. We have to do this every 5 years. I think Tammy and I were under the impression that we had one more year to go, but I think they changed it from 6 to 5, but I verified it because I'm taking a class right now with 26 other assessors, and basically they verified it for me and said, oh no, you have to send those out as well. So we're going to be working on those. And I would just say to the second homeowners that do receive this form to not panic. A lot of the times you might be able to, and Doug, you might be able to help me on this, maybe send it to your insurance company and have them fill it out.
The insurance company has no.
Could they help out with the value maybe?
No.
No.
Really.
So they're on their own.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, just like everybody has a boss. The town of Stockbridge Assessors has a boss, and that's the Department of Local Services.
Yeah, and the Bureau of Local Assessment.
And they are requiring this form be sent on a regular basis to do inventory.
Yes.
Really, it's just the valuation of how much all of your stuff was.
Right.
And
as of January 1st of this year.
And is it a depreciated amount that they're putting down or a cost new?
Well, if you have the cost new, that's fine. But at this point, what you feel it's worth now is fine too.
What it's.
Right, because what we'll end up doing is once we get a good sampling, and I think last time, maybe we got 400 back. We don't want to have to really send those out again if we can avoid it. So if we can get a good sampling the first time around, I'm going to have to run a report once they're in. Tammy goes through and totals them up if the taxpayer doesn't want to do that. And we'll array them and we'll come up with the percentage that's used against the building value for the personal property second homeowner tax. And typically it's not something that the state will, go and review every single one of them. They'll probably pick out a few and see how we conducted the study, but we're using their guidance and we're using their spreadsheet to come up with that percentage. But I know it can be daunting for anyone to receive something like that in the mail. And I know that a lot of the second homeowners that have owned their homes for years probably have seen this before. But we do get a lot of phone calls where, previous owners or new people, they're not sure what this is. And we will explain it to them. And unfortunately, we can't, we're under a time crunch and we can't allow 6 months for these forms to come back. So we're probably going to be allowing a month. If they go out at the end of this month, which they have to, they'll be due June 1st.
And again,
we need time to go through them and be able to, do what we have to do.
yeah, and these forms are required by the state. So if we get, say, a 10% return, the state's going to say, no, you have to send them out again.
Right.
So the bottom line is if we don't get a reasonable response back from the public,
Yes.
the state is going to make us keep on sending these until we get a reasonable return so they can grab the data that they're looking for.
Right. There's no other way of doing this. I mean, it's something that, you sort of dread when you're going into a certification that, you hate to impose this on people, but like you said, we don't have a choice. This is something that if we don't comply, it's just one other thing that could be a wall of not getting our, they put a wall up until you do it, you don't get preliminary certification. And in effect, you can't get your value set, you can't get your tax rate set. And again, in the outside of the assessing world, or maybe the municipality world, maybe that's not a big deal, but it is a big deal when the town of Stockbridge is on a schedule and there are certain things that have to be met in order to keep the finances flowing. Right. And so we're just basically trying to look ahead because there are a lot of things that could happen during a certification. Again, they love to throw curveballs and I'm pretty good at that, accepting them and dealing with them. But new director, I will say they've streamlined the process amazingly. I mean, when I first started, it was a 14-page work plan and it would be 2 weeks of the state out here every day, just coming up with new things, that they were looking for. Now it's a 2-page work plan and, you don't typically see your rep unless they see something wrong with your data. And honestly, they shouldn't see anything wrong with our data. So I did want to put that notice out there that there will be a form, if it's a 4-page form coming with a cover letter that will explain exactly what we're looking for. And again, I would say not to panic. It's not something that is, if you don't know exactly what something is worth, I would say just do your best and we can help you through it. But it is definitely, it can be very involved on our side too. So we'll go back to numbers, like I said, I skipped around to 7. Number 6, the income and expense statements that went out to all of the businesses and the rental income producing properties. Those were due on April 1st. But at this point, we need as many of them to come back. Again, it's another study, reverts back to something else that the Department of Revenue is requiring us to do when we're doing a certification, because what we're trying to do with these statements is come up with a new rental schedule for an income approach. We're required to use 2 approaches to valuation on our commercial, industrial, and rental properties. So this is another thing that's helping us come up with the numbers that we need to satisfy the state's requirements for certification of our commercial, industrial, and rental properties. And if you need an extension on that, I would just say to give us a call and I won't be working on those for a few months. If you need an extension, by all means, call us and we will grant that extension because we're more interested in getting as many of these back as we can.
So, Michael, just a quick question on this. What about the nonprofits that are renting out properties for?
These don't go to the nonprofits. It's
I know,
just,
but if they are renting property for private individuals or private businesses, are we reviewing those?
we don't typically because the form only on the state's end is for the commercial, industrial and rental properties. It would be nice if, we did do that, but there's the income and expense statement itself is a legal document that we can impose a fine on if they're not sent back on time. And they've typically never sent them. They don't force us to send them to the exempt properties. Maybe next time around when we do this, we might consider doing that. But at this point, I haven't done that. But I understand it'd be nice to see, if maybe down the road we can incorporate that. You know what I mean? Into that.
It might be hard to figure out which nonprofits actually have.
I mean, if someone gave me a list, it would be easy enough to do, but I don't have that list. Number 8, the overlay account used for interest on abatements. A few weeks ago, you guys signed the abatements for the settlement on the Verizon, and you, after that, signed the new contract for the amount to the state. An interesting thing came up with our, when we did the abatements and it got to the tax collector and our treasurer about should we be taking the interest that is given back to them, whether it's from an appellate tax board case or from an abatement, because typically you give the interest back. If it's the Verizon ones, that was a fiscal 14, 16, and 17. So there was interest that was owed back. And it was just brought to our attention that you can now there's an IGR and I'll find it. Erica actually sent it to me. You can take the interest also out of the overlay account. But I basically told her, go ahead and do it the way we typically do it until I talk to you guys about it, because I wasn't sure if it's such a small amount. And for me, I don't have a problem with it, but I was just wondering if that's something that we should be doing.
I think we usually have a problem with our overlay growing. Mm-hmm. And I think, so taking the interest out of the overlay can assist in that, and then also probably help the town in budgeting that
Right.
interest is not coming out of some other bucket that's not appropriate.
Right. Yep. I just wanted to make sure that, and she's like, can you speak to your board about it? And I said, absolutely. And there is an IGR. It is absolutely legal to do. I mean, it's fairly recent, so it's not anything that we have to research and talk to our lawyers about, but again, it'd be so much easier. I mean, we don't calculate the interest, so Tammy would still issue the abatements like she normally does, but they would still, what the only process that would change is in the end, once Erica does this, she would have to give me back something because I keep track of the overlay account with Cheryl. And if the interest is now coming out of and they're figuring out the interest after we do the abatements, they're going to have to give us a memo of some sort or a spreadsheet saying, here's the ones, here's the interest, and we took it out of the overlay for this particular fiscal year. I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that we don't hit a snag when we're trying to get the tax rate set and the state sees a number and Cheryl and I are submitting a different number for the overlay that now includes the interest. But how many times do we really have an appellate tax board case where we're issuing a lot of interest back? It's very seldom. And I mentioned to her that I didn't see a problem with it, but I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of it.
Yeah, that's fine. Should we put it in a motion? Do we have to vote on it, or is it not necessary?
I don't think you have to vote on it because it's an IGR that's the state is already basically telling us you have permission to do this. I just wanted to make sure that she knew that we discussed it And because the overlay, we are over the years are very, I don't want to use the word protective, but we're very aware of what's in there. We want to make sure that it's funded properly and that we're not doing an overlay, deficit when we're doing the tax rate. Okay, I can send a little memo to her saying that's fine, going forward if we do that. Typically, if a case goes to the appellate tax board, they tell us how much interest you have to give back. And I've always just said, we deal with the abatement side of it. You guys deal with the interest side of it. And, I know it can easily be calculated through our software. So it's a lot easier than it used to be. That's good. We will do that then. Tom, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add on number 9, update on tax exemption pilot program.
Yeah. So I reported previously that the committee had reactivated itself with a couple new members, namely Roxanne McCaffrey and Peter Strauss, and joining Jay Bykowski and myself. As we've sort of discussed next steps, it has really become apparent that we need to take yet another pause. It does not seem like it's an opportune time to be doing surveying the not-for-profits, just as they're trying to plan for the summer season, just as they're trying to get their footing back, as it will.
Okay.
And we've decided that it's actually going to be better to do the survey after the summer. And also the town right now is in the midst of preparations for the annual meeting. And it just seems like we've taken our time so far. We've had several delays, but we want to do this right. And the survey will be important, but it needs to be timed at a time when the not-for-profits are not sort of so focused on the immediate future and can step back a little bit. And we do think that the fall will be a better time for that.
Okay, did you want me to remain putting this on our agenda, or do you want or it'd be easier if you tell me if there's something that comes up,
I would
put it on.
say you don't need to put it on the agenda until after Labor Day.
Okay.
And we are discussing, with 4 now on the board, we are looking into a 5th person, or maybe even a 6th. And we're seeking a person who, we want some diversity, so we're seeking a person or 1 or 2 who both have experience in the business world, experience with not-for-profits. They would not represent a specific not-for-profit, but really has worked with not-for-profits and understands where they're coming from. And also just in terms of fairness and equity, private businesses pay taxes, not-for-profits don't. We feel we need to have some input there as well, so.
Okay.
And just furthermore, in talking with people, we've had some feedback that people feel that our approach has been a little bit adversarial against the not-for-profits. And I want to emphasize that we don't want this to be an adversarial process. We want it to be a collaborative process. We're striving for transparency and openness and guidelines, but we don't want it to be adversarial.
Okay, so that brings us to number 10. If there's any questions or comments from our Zoom audience. Now, nobody here? Oh, okay. I guess there's nobody else in attendance, so.
Is anyone on
Peter Strauss was, but there isn't anybody anymore.
He's left?
Yep.
Okay.
So we do have, applications, the exemption I know at the last meeting, I had mentioned that we thought we received the last, exemptions, but Tammy reminded me that we still had a whole bunch of them that were still out, so we called just to remind them that they had until April 1st to get them back, and we did get back four more that had already filed in previous years. So, we have those to go over, and motor vehicle as well. Doug, did you want to do?
Sure. I vote to enter into executive session per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to discuss, review, and vote on the remaining FY 22 exemption applications and motor vehicle abatement applications in chair. And we are going to state that we will not be returning to open meeting session upon completion of the executive sessions. So is there a second?
The motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
So thank you. We're going to move into executive session again and not return. And so thank you for attending the meeting.
Thank you.